Hello everybody and welcome again to one of my live feeds. Now this is a bit off the cuff really today. I just thought I'd start a new painting. And what it is, I've got a small event taking place this weekend. And I need something to sit and paint. Because if I don't sit and paint, then I can't advertise obviously on YouTube or Patreon or anything like that. So it's just a local event, as I said, so I don't expect anything in return for the event as such. Just a bit of fun really. Now remember to say hello, okay? So please say hello, I'd love to hear from you. And if you've got any questions, you know I'm here, so while you got me live, just ask a question, keep it relevant to the subject please. So ask a question, I'll do my best to answer for you, okay? But meanwhile, if I go quiet for a little bit, it's because I'm sat here playing and concentrating, just having a little bit of fun. So I'm just gonna get my putty eraser and just lighten some of this edge down. A bit too dark at the moment. What I'm actually doing at the moment, I've got some burnt umber, as you can probably see on the camera, and I'm using the burnt umber to simply add in just a little bit of colour over the pencil marks. So I'm just trying to catch up on myself on the internet, so bear with me a minute. That's better. I'm just trying to catch up where I've got to. Right, okay. Right, bear with me. I am here. Right, that's it. Okay. Because if I don't catch up on the internet and see where I am, I can't see what you're seeing otherwise. So bear with me. Now, the brush I'm using, out of interest, is a size 00. It's a synthetic brush, and it's made by Winsor & Newton. It's one that I've used for years. Well, not the same brush, because they don't last me that long. Usually 2 or 3 big, large paintings, and that's it usually. So they last me for years normally. So I make use of them normally, and that's how I tend to work on my finer details. I like synthetic because of the fact that the bristles are not quite as bouncy as sable, which in turn gives me much more control of kind of applying the paint onto the paper as well. Right, I want to see if you can hear what I'm saying and see what I'm doing, because if you put a comment on, please just say hello, so I know that you're there and you can hear me and you can see me and you can go, ooh, hello, it's only me. It's only Paul. I'm going to go down to the base of the tail here. So the idea with the paint over the pencil is that it will seal that pencil in. And when it seals the pencil in, it will stop it, well, most of the time, not always though, stop it getting erased when we start putting the watercolour washes over the top. Otherwise your kind of reference marks will just simply disappear on you. I'm not worried about down the feet and the branch at the bottom at the moment. I'll be working on it later on, but for now. So all I want to do is probably get maybe a quarter of this painted today, be it obviously on YouTube and obviously away from YouTube, only because I can't be on here for like 3 hours really. I don't think that's feasible, do you? Let's have a quick look there. Oh, we got then. Hi Diane, thank you very much indeed. Gosh, hello, looks good and sounds great so far. Thank you very much. Thank you everybody. Very kind of. I don't know, unless people actually say something. I've just got no idea. Got a bit of colour on there, so I'm going to lift that off using my detail brush. There you go. That's how to kind of remove a little splodge of water, or paint in this case, a little bit of burnt umber. A bit more actually, just there. There are quite a few methods of removing paint as well. You can use a magic eraser, and all that is, I'll just show you what that is, so bear with me a minute while I just stretch across my work surface. You see this here, look? So on. So that. And all it is a bit of a sponge. And I think it's called, bear with me a minute, I'm going to have a look at my box. You use it for cleaning oven hobs and all sorts of things. It's called Dr. Power, so Dr. Power Magic Eraser. There you go. So that's what that is, and that's what this is. And you get this big box that you can see on the small camera there. I think you can just about make it out. It's well, let's just say that that's the whole size of the sponge. So it goes a long way, a long way. What you would normally do with this, you'd dunk it in just some water first of all, like a normal sponge really, and then squeeze it out. Then use just one corner of it to very lightly though, just titivate the paper a little bit to remove the paint. Now that can damage your paper, and it also depends as well obviously on the quality of the paper, so just bear that in mind with anything like this. So if you get anything like this magic eraser stuff, make sure you test it on some scrap paper. So I've got loads of old scraps here, as you can see, which I tend to work with for testing out the paints. So just bear in mind that before you use anything like this. So that's the magic eraser. Have a look on the old eBay and Amazon or wherever you want to have a look, and you find it normally on there. Just a little bit of a tip for if you're removing paint, but as I say, test it out first, especially on your paper, because all papers, as I'm sure you're aware, tend to react a little bit differently. Right, okay, so that's that. Now I'm going to go for some other colour here. Thinking about the eye first, I always like to paint the eye first of all, and that's because, who's that? Was that smiley face, Blaze? Thank you very much indeed. I like to paint the eye first because of the fact that I've got something to look at, you know, when you're painting the rest of the body, when you're painting all them feathers. Now, I'm sure you guys have seen my work before, I'm sure you know the kind of work I do, and that I do like to work in fairly fine detail, hence the brush, which you just see my 00 size brush, and yeah, I do enjoy doing that. So I'm going to go for a little bit of lamp black. Black. I use black. Lamp black is a colour which I've used for all these years, and I know it's one of those which is not traditional for a colour. So you can use your blue, red and brown, you know, if you want to mix a dark colour or anything like that. I do like using black. Let's get some more burnt umber in there a minute. But I always tend to add a colour to it, so I'm going to go for a little bit. Let's have a quick look, see what I've got in my list here. This is my colour chart, by the way, so you can just see that there. On the other camera, there you go. And that's what I tend to work with for my half pans that you can see on the other camera there, and that's how I know what I've got in my pans, by looking at my colour charts. I do change them occasionally, but very rarely. Once I've got them in there, I like to kind of work with the same colours. And other colours I've got within separate half pans, but I've also got other colours in tubed paints as well. But most of the time, I prefer to work with half pans because I've, I don't know, got more control in my eyes. Now then, I'm going to go for a little bit of phthalo blue. So let's just get some of that first of all. I'm going to drop that into the black. Okay, so phthalo blue and lamp black. And what we're going to get on my tester cards, here we go, there's one there, look, is that kind of colour there. So it's a bit like a Payne's grey, is what I'm looking at. So it's very similar to Payne's grey. See that? If I just wet it down a little bit more, see the difference in colour? So it is very similar, because Payne's grey is a bit more like a bluey black, isn't it? The way Payne's grey goes. So I'm going to use that colour really to start thinking about outlining the eye, but for that colour, I'm going to just add a little bit of water into a separate mixing well and add that in. Just steal some of that out of there and pop that in there. I want a weaker version of it. Sean, hello Sean Harvey, thank you very much indeed. Beautiful photo. It is, isn't it? That's one from a chap on, I haven't got his link here actually about this minute, but it's a chap, a very clever photographer on Instagram called Fuji Tim. So Fuji Tim, so if you want to search for him on there, you'll find him. And it's very, very good photographer, he really is, and he allows me to use his photos, which is also very kind of him. Now then, I'm going to start, as I say, with the eye, but the first thing I want to do is think about where everything goes inside that eye. So my main concern, first of all, with anything like this is thinking about the overall shape. Got to get that shape right. Once you've worked out the shape and you know it's right, then you can start filling in the details in between. But initially, let's just get that shape right. Now, this eye is not, it's not completely round either, is it? It's not completely round, so I can just see you've got the eye ring on the outside, barely touching that paper. 2 airs and air, so I'm using it at the moment with this 00 brush. Just bring it slightly higher, because the thing is, when you zoom into a photograph, So I don't think you can see that on the other camera, can you? Because my I can't really get that off there, but I've got my tablet in front of me. When you zoom into that, because it looks so big on the tablet, you got to remember you're painting very small indeed, and because you're painting quite small, it does tend to throw you sometimes. It really does. So I got a little bit of, I get a little bit of phthalo blue a minute, and also a touch of cerulean blue into the same mix. A little bit of water in there. And just for now, I'm going to pop a bit towards where the highlight is within the eye, so it will come evident later on. And we can increase the depth of that as well. Going to wet away from that, then bring that across so it blends into the white of the paper. Just need that to dry off a little bit before we carry on with that as well. So I'm going to go for the darker colour now. Just take a little bit of that paint off with some tissue paper and really pick out this inner line of this eye. Now the thing with photos as well, like this Fuji Tim, very clever chappie, as a lot of photographers are, which I deal with, is that you need a very large photo for the work I do. It's got to be large, it's got to be big, and also extremely detailed, because you need to be able to zoom into that detail and kind of work on these little kind of sections that you can see, especially within something so small. It's also the same situation as well, if you do commissions, which some of you I'm sure do, when somebody sends you a photograph, go on, you've got to tell me this, haven't you? You put a comment down below, please. Somebody sends you a photograph about the size of your thumbnail, the size of a postage stamp, and expect you to do an A4 size painting or something like that with it, in detail. Okay? Yeah, thanks, cheers. So you need that large photo, you really do. What we got on there? To be able to work on something so tiny. I do try and take my own photos occasionally as well, because if you can take your own, I haven't got a decent camera or anything like that. My camera is what's called a bridge camera. If you guys know about your cameras, and it's just a basic kind of in-betweeny camera. So it's not the ones you buy when you're working as a professional photographer or anything like that. Kind of bridges the gap between the usual pocket size point and shoot through to the professional big chunky super duper cameras. So the bridge cameras are pretty good, but they're not that good in low light, so I tend to use a bridge camera for taking my own photos occasionally. But it's all about setting the scene as well. So if you want to take wildlife photos, you can do it with a mobile phone, believe it or not, and you can get an automated switch for your mobile phone. I know, I couldn't believe that. A friend of mine just recently bought a spotting scope for bird watching, because we all enjoy our bird watching here. Just going to bring this up towards a highlight, by the way, while I'm talking away. And it's bought this little kind of tiny switch. Trying to think how big it is. It's not very big at all. Probably easily fits in the palm of your hand, and it connects to your mobile phone. And you can set your mobile phone up on a tripod, say near a bird feeder or something like that. Then use a switch from the comfort of your living room through a window to take the photos on your mobile phone. So it's very clever indeed. But I tend to make a bit of a makeshift bird hide when I'm trying to take photos outside by the bird feeders. I've used a clothes horse before, draped with towels and an old blanket. Yeah, I'll tell you one thing, it did work. It worked really well. And I've still got the photograph knocking about, so I'll have to dig that one out. Right, okay. So you can see while I'm talking away, I've just filled the eye in. And as I say, we will need fine tuning as we go along. We will need another layer of detail in there. Plus also it needs a highlight along the top here as well, just so we can start pulling out some of that detail within it. And I'll also be adding a little bit of watercolour white in there, because by doing so, that'll then give me just that little bit of this kind of sparkle which I'll be looking for within this eye. So it kind of hooks down that way. I want to make sure the shape is right now. So tiny, it really is. It's so easy to get carried away and go far too big with the eye as well. Okay, right, so carry on with that there. To get that chance to dry a minute, while it's drying, what I'm going to do is work on the beak. Just get a first layer of colour on that beak. So bear with me a minute. Who's that then? Let's have a quick look. Thomas, hello. Hey Paul, could I send you a pic of one of my paintings and get your opinion? You're more than welcome to, Thomas. You're more than welcome to. Trying to think how you can send it to me. You can find me on Instagram if you want to have a look on there, which is the Devon Artist. So the Devon Artist. Have a look at the top right on the screen there. You just see the Devon Artist there. You'll also find me. Hang on, where's my links a minute? Bear with me a minute, Thomas. I'll just go to the computer. Well, see if I can find my links for you. Right, there you go. So that'll give us some ideas where you can find me. So obviously YouTube, there, yeah, we are here. Instagram, obviously, you can find me on there. Facebook, I've got a Facebook page, which is the Devon Artist. Just type it as a search, you'll find me again. And also, as you can see on Instagram, as I mentioned, the _Devon_, guess what? Artist. There you go. So I get some ideas of how to find me on the internet. So you can just send me a photo through there if you wish to. It's not a problem at all. I don't mind. Okay, there you go. Right, back to it. So what else we got? So Thomas. So it said, thank you, Thomas. Sean Harvey, thank you for the great sale of the PDFs on your website. Much appreciated. No, you're more than welcome to. I know, there's a bit of a discount on that, wasn't there? There really was. Right, okay. Quick slurp of coffee and let's carry on. Now, as I say, I'm waiting for that eye to dry. It won't take long actually because it's only a small area. But the good thing about not wetting things down too much is that it does dry much quicker and allows you to get straight into it. I have got a hairdryer here, and if anybody's seen me, you know I don't normally use a hairdryer, not personally. I've got a hairdryer here which I do use occasionally for something like this. I'm going to go for a little bit of cerulean blue mixed in with that phthalo blue, and I want this quite watery to begin with. Just to begin with. We can always add more layers over the top as we go along. A bit more down there as well. Give it a blue beak. It has got a blue beak though, hasn't it? It's very blue. And then down to the side. So we've got a little bit more phthalo blue in there now. So it's going to get quite dark in places as well, so I've got to remember that when I'm working on this. So a little bit of phthalo. Now I can go a little bit closer if you guys want a closer view of this painting. I've got limitations with the camera I'm working with. It's a good camera, mind you, but it's quite limited to obviously focus and depth of field and that sort of thing really. So if you want a bit closer, let me know. So it's about there. And then what I want to do as well with that one is just very lightly lift off a little bit of paint there. Well, if anybody fancies painting a fox, that's the latest one I've got on my Patreon channel. You can see the address at the top there if you're interested. If you fancy having a go at learning to paint wildlife. And the fox one, I'll just see if I've got it here for you a minute. Bear with me a minute. I'll just play a 30-second bit of it, and then I'll come back to you on here. Okay, so bear with me 1 second. Where is it? I've got to find it now. Let's try this one. Now let me show you some clips from my main watercolour Patreon video lesson on how to paint a very cunning looking fox. Let's get started. Okay, we'll start off by adding in the cadmium orange first of all, using our 00. Remember, these paints are more of a milky consistency. This one here, look. So cadmium orange, we've got the burnt sienna, and we got the French ultramarine and lamp black, and we've got the indigo and cerulean blue in the bottom one there, just for now anyway. I'll probably add to that as we go along, kind of make up as we go along, to a certain degree. I do like to kind of plan a lot of the colours out first if I can, before I make a start on the painting. Just test them out on some scrap watercolour paper, and then we can add more to it as we go along, or different colours as we go through the process. But at least that way you've got some basic idea the kind of colours that you'll need before you make a start. Try and look at the shape as well, because where the highlight is at the top there, that goes quite high up, doesn't it? But not to the very top itself. Just like the tap, keep tapping all the time. And then down there, it's about that kind of depth. Yeah, something like that. And wash the brush out, then come back in again, then very lightly tap around the outside edge of this again as we did before. Just kind of break it down, soften it out, but no need to go right to the top because the highlight will kind of pick out some very fine edges there. I can see on this side it's really bright, just kind of hooks around to there, and it's really tiny. And then very lightly, barely touching the paper, 2 hairs in air, that's all I'm doing. Put a few little lines in there, more or less from like 1 o'clock down to, I don't know, actually 11 o'clock really, isn't it? 11 o'clock down to 5 o'clock sort of direction. I'm trying to see where that goes actually, because that's more white. Right, well that'll give us some ideas, I'll leave it plain. The preview on that one's about 7 minutes long, so I think that's long enough, don't you? Okay, right, back to it. Now, where was I? Now, I'm looking at the eye. I'm just going to lift off a little bit of paint now. Just by using a damp, clean brush. You can barely see this on there. And take off just a tiny amount of paint on the top of the eye. Just want to create a bit of a highlighted area, but you've got to use the very tip of the brush. And you can't have that brush too wet. And the good thing about doing it this way is that when you get that paint off, you can then just touch it back up again once it's dry, that wait till it dries. So we're a little bit more dark, just to tidy up this final edge here as well, because I do need to do that with that particular area. And just, I think I'll just darken down just the dark area again, using the same colour. It's that blacky blue. So remember that was lamp black and phthalo blue, which we had there. I think that should be just about dry there. The top line of this eye is nearly straight, not quite, it's nearly straight. A bit of a bow in it, a bit of a dip, especially on this side. And then we got some small little marks to cut around the outer ring of this eye as well. Tiny marks, barely see it. That's how tiny we need to go with this. Really dinky. Dinky? Is that a word? Dinky. Just down the side. And tapping. Ooh, there we go, it's nearly done. Nearly got an eye on there. I'm going to increase the blue a little more on this side. Yeah, got the first wash on the beak as you can see, which is fine. Oh, who's that? Let's have a look. Sandra folks. Hello, Sandra. Enjoyed watching this. Thank you very much. Very kind of you. Cool. Right, I'm going to go for a little bit of watercolour white. Now I use the SAA one, which is this particular one here, look. But there's a variety of different whites on the market. You can use opaque white, you can use, should I say, gouache, white gouache should I say, instead of this particular one, so it's entirely your choice really. All you need to make sure of is that it's definitely opaque, because if it's not opaque, you find it won't cover anything. Now I know a lot of traditional artists tend to reserve the white of the paper, but I like to do it differently, because we're all unique in the way we paint, we certainly are, and we all tend to interpret things a little bit differently. And this is a way I've painted for the past just over 40 years now. So I'm going to just get this into a little bit of water down there, look. I want this to a kind of creamy consistency. Something like that, probably. I'm going to roll it. A bit more, actually. I'm going to roll it and pull away. That gives me a nice point. Just tap it once on some kitchen roll. And I'm going to come in, make sure it's nice and dry in there first, so if you can, which I know it is now. Very lightly touch this white in. Now you will start to pick up the colour underneath if you keep kind of going over the same place as well. Just add a bit of a brighter light just here. You can see that in the reference photo as well, can't you? So you can see that's where it is. A little bit down that side. Give the brush a quick rinse out and a dry. And I'm going to soften in just that very edge there. Now watercolour white, you can add a little bit of colour over the top. And that should do, just about do for the eye. I may fine tune it, may tweak it, we'll see how we get on. So now I need to work on the beak, which is going to be our next thing. So a quick look, make sure everybody can see. Right, now working on the beak. Let's see if I can get a bit closer for you, so bear with me a minute. How's that? Is that a bit closer? Yay. Right, I'm back again. I'll slurp a coffee and we'll carry on. Now for the beak, I'm going to do the same thing again. I'm going to start off with the top part of the beak, or the upper mandible, if you want to be correct. Just by lightly dampening that down first of all. We have got a nostril hole there, so we need to make sure that's kind of reserved as well. Back to the mix of cerulean blue and phthalo blue. Just working on that top. Just a little bit there. I could add in a touch of that blacky blue. Blacky blue. Which is that lamp black and phthalo blue, you know. And that tends to hook its way down. I'm trying to see where that goes. A bit of a sad smile, isn't it? It was not even a smile there, actually. So that goes up to there. Then it comes down. And then over the top of this little area here. So I'm trying to map out where it's all going to go before start filling it in. Just define that lower mandible just down there. And that goes into here. Is that about that? Something like that. Okay. You got to remember that every time you put a colour over the top, that colour will get deeper and deeper. I think I'll just add just a touch of French ultramarine in there as well. Just want to change the colour a little bit. There's a bit more of a kind of purpley hue to it, so I might have just a tiny amount of alizarin crimson over there. Bit more around there. Brush a wash out. Okay. I'm going to soften down this outer edge of this blue. Yeah, that's it. Around to there. So we can always add obviously highlights in there as well. It's going to get a little bit of that alizarin crimson in a minute and pop that into a separate well. I don't want it looking purple, but I just want it more on the blue side of purple, if you know what I mean. I don't want it too purple in there. Just add this small amount. That's all I want. We'll pick out the nostril as I mentioned. Well, excuse the terminology, but we'll pick out the nostril later on. I need a different way of saying that, really, don't I? Okay. And now for the lower part. Now, as I mentioned, I can see a bit more purple in there. which is around here. So let's pop in the lightest colours first, which is this purple. Then I'm going to go for that blacky blue. Let's go for the weaker version. Remember, we've got two versions there. And we are literally going to fill this area in. Just making sure that you got the shape about right. So that goes to about there. Now remember, if you've got any questions, please ask away. I don't mind. You got me live for, how long have I been on? Been on for half an hour now, so you got me live. Hello, Donald. Oh, hello, Kate. Did I trace the bird? Yes, I did. I did trace a bird. I used trace down paper or graphite back paper to do that with. But what I tend to do, I'm just going to go for the darker version of that, by the way. This is that blacky blue, lamp black, and the phthalo blue. What I tend to do is use, say, graphite back paper and trace down a reference photo printed off on the just my little cheapy printer. Do it that way around. But you know, there's no substitute really for doing it freehand. If you can do it freehand, then do so. I tend to do it this way around because it's just quicker just to get the photograph or the outline drawing onto the paper, so you can get straight to that painting stage, which is why I tend to just trace it down. It's much quicker. But every now and then I'll practice freehand and have a play with that as well, because you should do that anyway. Just 1 second, just do that a minute. Okay, just having a quick slurp of coffee. So that will give us some ideas what I tend to do. What I've got here, let me just work that Dr. Power out of the way a minute. All it simply is, Donald, is this. Let's have a look. So a quick look on that. There's this stuff here. So that's your trace down or graphite back paper, and the idea is, it's very crinkly as you can hear, is that the shiny side, which is this side, is usually down. So you place that between that and the reference photo, and then obviously transfer through. And it just gives you a pale outline you can work to. I still, even after doing that though, I used to get my putty eraser and soften down that line a little bit. Otherwise it can look a little bit too harsh, and you should always make sure that the pencil marks are a little bit lighter. But yeah, you know, if you fancy using trace down paper or something like that, or graphite back paper, depends on what different manufacturers call it, something different, then do so. But as I say, every now and then have a play with freehand as well. It also depends on the time you've got. You know, if you haven't got a lot of time to get the outline drawing down, you want to get an accurate outline drawing so you can try and do an accurate painting, then it's quite handy for that as well. Right, okay, so I'll give you some ideas how I do that. And I do that on Patreon as well. So obviously if you want to teach on Patreon, all the videos we do there are traced out, just so people can get straight to that painting process, rather than, you know, struggling trying to do the drawing in the first place. And you can teach drawing as well. You can teach the drawing skills, but you do that as another type of a lesson as well. So I think I just want to teach people to paint, which is the way I tend to work it. But I have gone through videos, I've made videos on different kind of techniques, even freehand drawing, how I do that as well. Oh, by the way, as well, if anybody's interested in freehand drawing, the way I tend to work it is, let me just get my pencil a minute, give you some ideas. So I've got an old 50 pence pencil, so it is a mechanical pencil, which I'd like to use, as you can see. But I use this to measure things out. So when I'm working from a photograph, so say for example the robin I've just traced down here, I would measure the width of the eye to the tip of the pencil and see how many eye widths it is across, say, to the beginning of the beak. So for example, here to there is more or less the same as one eye width, quite close. So you can really kind of fine tune it that way around. So you know, to this point here, there's one eye width across. Got the idea? No pun intended. and then to the tip of the beak, think how many more eyes is that, and so on. It's 2.5 eyes or whatever it might be. Then you can do the same up. Once you've got so many elements drawn out, then you can use the beak as a reference mark. So you can say, okay, how many beaks does it cross from the edge of this eye horizontally to the edge of the body? And you'd go 1, and the 2 goes there, so 1 3/4 roughly, to give us some ideas on how that would work. So that's how you would normally work, or I would normally work anyway, from freehand drawing before start of painting, or just simply freehand drawing. So you can do it that way around as well. So I do hope that helps people as well. So there's many ways of doing it. You can use a grid system, which is also another good method, and that's simply using a piece of acetate, which I've got here. I'm not got it at hand at the moment. A piece of acetate with a grid on it, which I print off. I'm trying to think actually. I did put them on my Patreon channel as well for people to download there. Just trying to think if I've... I don't know if I've got them on there though. No, they're on my Patreon channel. I'm going to say on my newsletter, when people sign my newsletter, they get a free PDF on how to paint a very detailed house sparrow, and a tips and tricks guide as well, which I've hand typed, handwritten, photographed, etc. So if you go on my devonartist.co.uk website, you'll find the newsletter. If you want to sign up for that, you get access to those as well. So it's entirely your choice, of course. Right, okay, so I'm just going to go over this again. I want to make sure this is dark enough. But yeah, I'm going to be adding highlights over this in places, just so I can define where things go. I've got the feathers coming down to about there, just sell some reference marks. Tiny mark about there. Getting there. But I've got to make sure that this does kind of replicate what I can see on the photo. This kind of hooks up to there, as you can see on the photo, then comes down at a different angle. So I'm just going to fine tune that now. And the upper mandible overlaps the bottom. So that does come down to, it's more straight as well, it's not curved down there. Down to about there, so it just overlaps a little bit to about there. And that should just about do other than the highlight. Okay. So now for the highlight. Here we go. Donald, curious, thank you. Well, would you then trace in pen to darken it a bit? Well, it depends really, Donald, because it depends. When I've got it traced onto the paper on here, this is what you can see here, hasn't been dampened down that bit, I don't think. So I use my putty eraser, just soften that back a touch. The only time I'll redo it again is when I'm doing for a reference drawing for my patrons on Patreon community. I'll retrace it again, but then I'll darken the outline so I can scan it or photograph it, so therefore it's clear for people to print off. So it depends on how we look at it. Sometimes when I'm doing my videos for Patreon, not trying to push Patreon, but you know, it's obviously quite relevant, is that with Patreon I tend to make sure that the outline initially on the painting is quite dark. If I was painting just with the radio on and not videoing any work, which most of the time I am videoing, then if I'm just painting for myself, I'll have a very pale, barely noticeable outline visible, and that's how I tend to work when I'm just working on my own, really, because you find that way, once you get the paint on that outline, it just seals that pencil in, and then it ends up being there permanently. So yeah, I mean, it's handy for certain situations. That's why I've gone over this with burnt umber initially, to seal that pencil in. So when I add the washes of colour over the top later on, at least I know that most of this should hopefully still show through, and that's what I want it to do. So I'll give you some ideas, yeah. Hopefully that helps. So thank you for asking. Any more questions, please? You know I'm here to help. So you've got me for another, how long have I been on? 39 minutes, probably another 10-15 minutes, something like that. Then I might go then and go and put the kettle on and do the ironing, everything else I need to do. So, you know, chores never stop, you know, when you got to paint. A little bit more down there. And I'm just going to put the highlight to the top of the bit. This is that opaque watercolour white again. Just a little bit more down there. I think I'll probably soften that down as well, to be honest with you. Just a tiny amount there, right. So wash the brush out, come back in with a clean damp brush. When you're using watercolour white as well, be it white, opaque white or white gouache, just make sure you keep washing that brush out, because if you don't, what will happen is it will clog up inside the metal ferrule. That's happened to me more than once, and then your bristles would simply do that. They just kind of spread out, just to soften that down there. Okay. So I want to just touch in a little bit of lemon yellow a minute. Just where the gape is on the bird, just around there. And then that can be lightened if need be as well at some point. Just to there. Okay, don't want to mix it in with the blacky blue just yet. So if I do that, then you find it could turn green, because there's a lot of blue in there. And the gapes on the birds are usually quite yellow. Depends on the age of the bird as well. Just lighten that fraction. There we go. That'll do for now, I think. I can always fine tune and fiddle with that as I go along, but there's so many tiny details in there we can work with. There really is, and it's quite exciting when I start getting onto all these little details. I think you can probably gather that from my conversation here. Okay, let's have a quick look. Diane, hello Diane. Diane, do you prefer cold or hot pressed paper? I prefer cold pressed paper. This particular one, by the way, is Bockingford. I use a lot of Bockingford paper. In fact, it's my main go-to paper. It's a, for people that don't use it, it's a mid-range paper. It's not Arches or anything like that. It's not a cheap paper either. So it is 100% cotton. And because of that, the water works really well for the watercolor washes. I have tried doing botanical work on hot pressed paper. I have tried doing wildlife work on hot pressed paper, but I don't get on. I've got Arches with hot pressed paper. I don't get on with the washes, the way they tend to lie on the surface, and they don't, to me, they don't seem to blend quite as easily. So when I'm putting watercolor washes, what I'm going to do very shortly on this, by the way, I need to make sure that the washes do blend, because that's how I tend to work, especially for the main foundation colours. For example, on this robin, you know, we've got such a bright orangey yellow chest, which it is on this one, and then we've got the raw siennas within the head, with a little bit of a, like a Payne's grey, like a blacky blue if you wish, around the side here. But to get those gentle blends between the two, I couldn't achieve that as well with, or as much as with hot pressed paper really. So yeah, this is a £140, and the pad is a block pad, so in other words it's glued all the way around. I can't move it because it'll be off centre for the camera, but it's glued all the way around, bar one little corner where I can just get a palette knife in there, or, out of interest by the way everybody, I use a guitar pick. I don't play the guitar by the way, but I do repair a lot of computers, which I've done for people in the past, and these are what we use to kind of get through some of the plastic covers. So I use that, a little guitar pick, to slide around to divide the sheets. So there's one little gap on the side here where I can do that. But what I do, by the way, as well, is that when I slide this into that gap to take the sheet paper off, I keep it nice and level, so I don't tilt it in down or up or anything like that. Keep it nice and level. And I have my finger just behind, but just back a little bit, so it's only probably about 1/4 of an inch. And my finger rests like that against the side of the paper. And then that will just slide around underneath and take that sheet off. And that's how I tend to take the paper off the watercolour blocks. Now, I like block paper because of the fact they're already sort of pre-stretched away. And so when they get really, really wet and I'm about just completely through, yes, it will still cockle, so it will still wave a little bit. But when it dries, it usually dries nice and flat again. It just saves any stretching work or anything like that. The only time I stretch papers normally is when I'm working on commission work, which I don't often do now because I don't really have the time with Patreon. So basically I work mostly on kind of block pads, which is much easier. Now then, chatting away here, I'm going to get my mixing brush back again. Now this mixing brush is an old acrylic, old acrylic brush, which I've had for many, many years. You can even see the paint's come off the handle. But I'm going to use that for making up a little bit, to get some water in my palette in a minute. A little bit of colour for the top of the head. I'm trying to see what colours we've got in the photograph. We can see the photo on the screen here. I'll just make sure, I don't think you got it on the screen at the moment. Let's have a quick look. See what we've got the photo for you. I don't know if we've got the photo there for you at the moment, so bear with me a minute. Let's go back to the other scene a minute, which is that one there. There's your photo in the corner. I'll leave it on that for a minute. So you can see from the photo itself that up there we've got quite some bright colours there, haven't we? So you can see we've got on the chest we've got oranges. So we've got something like a lemon yellow, cadmium orange, scarlet lake, probably a little bit of burnt umber in there as well for the kind of dulling it down, darkening it down when you get down to the bottom part of the orange chest. As for the head, I'm looking at a grey colour, which is going to be that black blue, which is going to be watered down a little bit. We've got raw sienna, little bit of yeah, I'm trying to think, raw umber and raw sienna I think in there. So it's kind of looking at that and then getting your testing paper like this and kind of testing those colours out as you go along. So that's what you want to look at when you're working on stuff. I've got no idea why that photo's not showing, so I do apologise for that. I'll try and bring it up again while I'm talking to you here. But yeah, that will give us some ideas on how that works really. So why is that not showing? Bear with me 1 second. I'll try and find it back for you. Which is this one here. Oh, done. Okay. Oh, that's big, isn't it? I'll just bring that into the corner so you can just see this. So bear with me a mo. But then a minute. Very unprofessional, I know. Just so you can see this little robin sticking its head there. Is that better? Hey, there we go. I knew we'd get there in the end. Okay, good job on how to work the program, doesn't it, really? Now, back to it. So I'm going to get some, let's go for the raw sienna first of all. The raw sienna is a nice colour. It's one of my favourite colours, actually. I'm going to add that into my mixing well. I don't want it too thick. I'm going to go for like a milky consistency. Now, when I say milky, I tend to work on watery, milky, creamy, and thick. So watery, milky, creamy, thick. Okay, they're the ones I tend to work with to give some general idea. Now, watery is like water out of your tap, out your faucet, so out your tap. Creamy is a little bit thicker than milky is a little bit thicker than water, and then creamy is like the cream you would put onto I don't know, some fresh strawberries or something like that. So quite creamy, not as thick as toothpaste. So give us some general idea. So we've got some raw sienna in there. I'm going to go for a little bit of burnt umber, just kind of re-wet my paint here because they're dried up somewhat now. I will have to go in about 5 minutes, by the way, everybody. Got to get the ironing done before my partner Joe gets home from work. Got to show that I've done something today. And I'm going to go for... I'm going to see what this blacky brown looks like watered down even more so. Because I want to use a kind of a bluey grey for the head. It's all about testing your colours out first of all. That might be alright actually. That might be okay. And the raw sienna, which is this one here. And then within that I might add a little bit of burnt umber. Just a hint of burnt umber. There you go, a bit more of a hint ball. Within that as well. As a possibility, I'll see how it goes on first. A bit more raw sienna in there. So test it out like I'm doing now first of all. Then if you wanted to try it, you can go for a little bit of burnt sienna. Not too much though, my half pan's nearly empty there. So there's your burnt sienna, but that's too much. That's far too much. So if I do add that in, I'll add it marginally into the colour. Just kind of blend them together like so. So I'll give you some ideas of kind of colours I'm going to be using just for the basic foundation washes for this robin. Okay, let's do it. Are you ready? Yeah. Right, okay. Any more questions? No, I think we're about there still. So if anybody's got any questions, you got me literally for about 5 minutes. 5 minutes. 5 minutes and I'm going to go. I'll leave you in peace, okay? Now I'm going to go for my size 5 brush. And I'll just kind of show you working on these foundation washes first of all. Just the main top anyway. I can't do the chest or anywhere like that until this top area is dry. And And one thing I try and avoid doing really when I'm live on camera is getting the hairdryer out and drying it, because it does make one heck of a racket. Which it does, I know. So, so bear that in mind. I can't do the check. Right, make sure you can hear me. Now this is a, say size 5, it's a sable brush. And it's made by a family company called Rosemary and Co. So Rosemary and Co. I don't get paid on, don't worry. You know, just letting you know which one to use. I wish I did. So Rosemary and Co. And it's a series 93, size 5. Now I know that other artists do use these brushes as well, because these are very short. You can see the point on there, the lovely point on it. But they're very short bristles as well. So basically you've got a bit more control over this particular style of brush, this particular, you know, pattern, if you wish. So I'm going to drop in on the top of that a little bit of that kind of blacky blue. Now because we've already got the paper wet, this will dilute this colour even more. And I'm sure we all know that watercolour very often dries much lighter, but that can depend on the consistency, you know, and the amount of pigment you got within the paint as well, so bear that in mind. So just very to the top there, it's a little bit there, and to the side of the eye. Just leave a gap between the eye and the grey, and then down the side here. A little bit more. So say somewhere like that. Okay. Now I'm going to go in with some of the raw umber. Remember, this is just that first wash, the first foundation wash, which I call them. And this will give us something to work on top of as we go along. Either we add another layer of a wash over the top, or we go straight in with the detail after this is dried. And then down to about there. Okay. And if I wanted to, I could just intensify that a little bit more. Make it a bit stronger. Just around there maybe. And there. And then a touch of that burnt umber. Just in places as well. And that just kind of varies the colour and makes a little bit more on there. So that will do for the first basic foundation wash for the top of the head. Now what I need to do is work my way down the back of the feathers. And I want to get this done actually today, because when I do this stall event on Saturday, all I need to think about working on is the details then. So I just want to get the basic washes on first of all, turn that around, just so I can work on the details while I'm talking to people on the stall. So much easier that way, isn't it? Okay, well I'm going to say goodbye in a minute. So I'm going to ask if there's anything else. Let's have a look. Like, thank you, Danielle. Let's have a quick look here. So we all vouch for you that you did important things today. Oh, you're a star. Thank you, Carlos. So if you see my partner Joe, if you talk to her on Facebook or anything like that on my Devon Artist page there, then just say, well, it was working today. It was working today, honestly. So if I just bring that back up for you, hopefully I should be able to bring that back up. What we got up there? Not that one there. Social media. So bear with me a minute. That one is my Patreon site, just so you guys know. The social media text is this lot. So you know about YouTube. I mentioned this earlier on. You know about Instagram. That one there. Down a bit, pull down a bit. That's it. Instagram. You can follow me on Instagram if you want to. Sign up, say hello. Just click on like, whatever you do on Instagram. Okay, I'm not brilliant on it, but I do put a lot of stuff on there. And then you got obviously Facebook, as you know, which I'm always on Facebook every day, as well as obviously on Patreon. I'm on there every day. So you find me on both platforms every day with Instagram, and of course you know I'm here on YouTube. I try and post on average once a week on YouTube if I can, and occasionally, as you know now, I like to go live. Alright, to give you some general idea. So I'm going to put a little video on here in a minute. about what I do on Patreon, just to give you some ideas. So if you want to click off, wait till I stop talking and go. But if you want to just hang on as a thank you and just watch it for me, and you see what I do and the kind of things that I teach, just to give you some ideas on the things you can do yourself as well. You don't have to join. Or remember as well, if you do want to Patreon, and I forgot this lot, then if you do want to Patreon, make sure that when you go on there, have a look at the free section as well. Okay, in fact, they've changed the format on there, haven't they? They've just changed it this week. Go on to www.devonartist.co.uk. I haven't got that typed out now. So devonartist.co.uk, and have a look on there. Click on Patreon, and you find the 3 videos in there. There's one which is for painting a robin like this one, and there's also another one for painting the bee-eater bird. So you can have a play with those and see what you think. And the reference drawing, outline drawing, reference photo, everything like that is there ready for you to download as well. As I mentioned earlier on, don't forget as well that if you go onto my devonartist.co.uk website, sign the newsletter, okay, I know you don't mind, but if you sign it, then you get access to my PDF document on how to paint a house sparrow, and that's quite an in-depth detailed document which I've written and photographed, so you can have a play with that, plus a bonus download as well in there for you on different techniques and tips to do a watercolour. Right, okay, that's all that out of the way. Right, okay everybody, I'm going to say goodbye, and until next time around, thank you for being here today and watching, and I'll see if we can go live again some other time, hopefully very, very soon. So, bye for now. My name is Paul Hopkinson. Now stay tuned, and I'm going to show you exactly what you're going to get from being here on Patreon on how to paint wildlife in watercolour. Let's get stuck in. So what I show you my technique on how to paint wildlife in watercolour. We go for a variety of different subjects, from dogs, cats, from large right down to little tiny creatures as well. And I guide you through this, as I say, step by step, all the way from the beginning right to the final brush strokes. For the $10 tier, you actually get access to the entire back catalogue from over 2.5 years of video content and tuition. So all of that will keep you painting for many months to come. Now bearing in mind as well with these video tutorials, I do release a brand new one every single month. So every month we get a new subject to work on, but you still got access to all the back catalogue as I mentioned, which means you can paint at your own leisure. So all I mean by that is that you don't have to get that project done that particular month. You can go back 2 years ago, for example, and work from one of our projects from then come back and then work on this one another time. There's no rush, there's no panic, and you can paint at your own leisure and at your own speed. You'll also gain access to all the shorter video tutorials as well. So these are all the short ones, such as painting a feather, working on, say for example, a hare's eye, working on fur, and many other subjects which I'm putting on here as well. I also provide the outline drawing and reference photograph which go alongside the main videos which we have on here, plus the shorter videos as well. So you can simply print these off and use them for your paintings. Now each month I write a PDF document which includes all the reference photos as well. Now this PDF document will go alongside that current month's main video project, so you can use it instead of or alongside of, it's entirely your choice. But also you gain access to the PDF document for every single month that you... So the idea is all our shorter video tutorials are on here, so the $5 tiers and above. The $10 tier levels and above are the main big larger videos. So you can choose whatever you want to have a go at, okay, from here. The idea of this companion page is that when you click on, say for example, scroll through to see what you fancy, say for example the tiger. You click on the tiger tutorial, that'll take you back to Patreon itself with everything to do with the tiger videos. So that'll give you the outline drawing, the reference photograph, and all the part numbers to do with the tiger. So it's really handy to go through that and have a look what you're fancying. One thing I'd recommend with this companion page as well is to bookmark it on your browser. Alright, so save it so you can access it really quickly to choose whatever you want to have a go at painting. Not forgetting as well, I produce quite a lot of tips and tricks videos for you to go through, and also about videos to do with materials that we use here, and ideas, questions, that kind of thing. So have a look on my special companion website to go with Patreon, and you'll see exactly what I mean. Now if you're a Facebook user, I've also created a special closed Facebook group for my members as well. So this is a place really where we tend to discuss other things or questions and answers to do with Patreon and some of the tutorials which we work on. So you can do that either here on Patreon itself or on our Facebook group. Now I'm actually adding a third video in every month as well, so if you're on the $10 level you get access to the main long video project, which could be 3 or 4 hours long. You'll also get access to the $5 tier level project as well, which is another video project, which is usually something to do with like painting a dog's nose or a very small project which you can work on if you haven't got a lot of painting time. But additional to all of that, I'm also going to be working on a few little botanical items as well, just so you can add these as extra kind of embellishments within your main project paintings. So you're not going to get one, you're not going to get two, but you're going to get 3 video projects to work on every single month. And remember, you'd have to do it that particular month anyway. You can do it 6 months down the line, doesn't really make any difference, and all at your own leisure. Now as for joining, have a look through the different tier levels from the $5, $10, the $20 level and the $30 level, and you see there's different benefits with different ones. Right, so there you go, that'll give us some ideas what Patreon is all about and what you would learn through being here on my Patreon channel. As you know, there's a massive catalogue now of things that you can learn from, and don't forget you get the outline drawing, the reference photo, everything else for you to kind of get stuck in straight away. So if you find this is exactly what you want to learn on how to paint wildlife in watercolour, then click on join now, choose a level that you want to subscribe to and make a start.